In the glittering metropolis of Dubai, where crystal towers pierce the desert sky and fortunes are built on ambition and sand, Erin Blake had crafted what appeared to be the perfect expatriate fairy tale. The 33-year-old American woman had sacrificed everything she once held dear: her thriving marketing career on Madison Avenue, her close-knit circle of friends, her entire identity as an independent New York professional, to follow love across continents and cultures. She had married Rami Al-Nuaimi, a charming Emirati businessman who had swept her off her feet with promises of adventure and a life that would bridge two worlds. Together, they had built what seemed like an Instagram-perfect existence in one of the world's most luxurious cities, raising twin daughters in a stunning villa, surrounded by the wealth and wonder that Dubai promised to those bold enough to chase their dreams. But beneath the polished surface of their multicultural success story, Erin was about to uncover a betrayal so calculated and devastating that it would drive her to orchestrate one of the most brutal public destructions of a man's reputation that the expatriate community had ever witnessed. Erin Blake had never imagined that her carefully planned life would take such a dramatic turn toward the Middle East. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, she had embodied the quintessential American dream of female independence and professional success. After graduating from NYU with a degree in marketing communications, she had clawed her way up Manhattan's competitive advertising ladder, landing a coveted position at Morrison & Associates, where she quickly established herself as a rising star managing million-dollar accounts. By age 28, she was flying to client meetings across the country, living in a converted Soho loft, and building the sophisticated urban lifestyle that represented everything she had worked toward since college. Her entire trajectory changed on a snowy February morning in 2012 when she ducked into a small coffee shop near Boston University to escape a sudden blizzard. She had been in Boston for a client presentation when fate placed her at the same corner table as Rami Al-Nuaimi, who was completing his MBA while preparing to return to Dubai to join his family's connections in the rapidly expanding oil sector. Rami was everything Erin had never expected to fall for: traditional yet progressive, deeply rooted in his Emirati culture yet fascinated by Western perspectives, and absolutely captivated by the idea of building a family that would honor both their backgrounds. Their courtship unfolded like something from a romantic novel, filled with passionate discussions about creating a life that would blend East and West, and Rami's earnest promises that together they could build something extraordinary in Dubai. When Rami proposed in late 2013, presenting Erin with a stunning 3-carat diamond ring, she found herself saying yes to completely reinventing her life. The decision to move to Dubai meant abandoning the career she had spent years building, leaving behind her support network, and trusting that love would sustain her through the massive cultural transition ahead. Her friends thought she was crazy, her mother worried she was throwing away her independence, but Erin was intoxicated by the romance of it all and by Rami's vision of their future together. Their 2014 wedding was a breathtaking blend of cultures, held at the Burj Al Arab with ceremonies incorporating both American traditions and Emirati customs. Erin wore a stunning Vera Wang gown for the Western ceremony and changed into a traditional Emirati dress adorned with gold threading for the cultural celebration. As she looked out at the Persian Gulf from their honeymoon suite, Erin felt certain that love really could conquer the challenges of cultural integration. The early years seemed to validate every sacrifice she had made. Rami's career flourished as he secured a prominent position with Emirates National Oil Company, allowing them to lease a magnificent villa in Jumeirah complete with swimming pool and manicured gardens. When Erin discovered she was pregnant with twins in 2015, the joy seemed to complete their perfect picture. She embraced her role as stay-at-home mother to Sophia and Layla, their beautiful daughters who would grow up speaking Arabic, English, and French, embodying the multicultural future she and Rami had envisioned. Erin threw herself into expatriate life with characteristic determination. She joined the American Women's Association of Dubai, volunteered at international charity events, and learned basic Arabic to communicate with Rami's family. She created a social media presence showcasing their beautiful life: family beach days at Kite Beach, elegant dinners at Dubai's finest restaurants, and holiday trips from the Swiss Alps to the Maldives. From the outside, everything appeared flawless. But by early 2018, subtle changes began creeping into their seemingly perfect life. Rami started working longer hours, claiming increased responsibilities required evening meetings and weekend conferences. His phone, once casually left on counters, now remained constantly at his side, buzzing with messages he would quickly silence or answer in private. Their conversations gradually became more surface level, focused on schedules rather than the deep connection that had brought them together. Erin noticed Rami seemed emotionally distant during family time, often distracted even when playing with the girls. The spontaneous romantic gestures that had characterized their early marriage slowly disappeared, replaced by a routine that felt more like roommates than lovers. When she tried addressing the growing distance, Rami blamed work stress and the natural evolution of marriage settling into a more mature phase. The cultural isolation that had once felt adventurous began weighing heavily on Erin's shoulders. Despite her integration efforts, she often felt caught between worlds, too American for traditional gatherings, yet too changed to relate to newly arrived expatriates. Rami's family had begun making subtle comments about her role as a wife, suggesting she should focus more on supporting Rami's career advancement and less on volunteer activities and Western friendships. As 2019 began, Erin found herself lying awake at night, wondering when their marriage had begun feeling more like a performance than a partnership. She told herself every marriage went through difficult phases, that the pressures of raising children and building careers naturally created stress. She had sacrificed too much to consider that something might be fundamentally wrong. But deep in her heart, Erin Blake knew the perfect expatriate life she had worked so hard to create was built on foundations beginning to crack. What she didn't realize was that those cracks would soon reveal a betrayal so profound it would transform her from a trusting wife into an agent of devastating revenge. It was on a scorching Thursday afternoon in March 2019 that Erin Blake's carefully constructed world began to crumble in the most devastating way imaginable. She had taken Sophia and Layla to Dubai Mall for their weekly routine, shopping followed by ice cream at the food court. The mall was bustling with its usual mix of tourists and expatriate families when Erin spotted a familiar figure near the luxury wing. Her heart stopped as she recognized Rami's distinctive profile near a quiet coffee shop. But he wasn't alone. A young woman with long dark hair was pressed close against him, her hand resting intimately on his chest as he leaned down to whisper something in her ear. The gesture was unmistakably romantic, tender in a way that made Erin's stomach lurch with recognition and disbelief. For several seconds, Erin stood frozen while her daughters tugged at her hands, asking why she had stopped walking. This couldn't be her husband, her faithful Rami, the man who had built a life with her based on love and cultural respect. But as she watched, the young woman tilted her face up toward Rami's, and he responded by brushing a strand of hair from her cheek with gentle intimacy that Erin recognized because it had once been reserved for her. The tender gesture shattered any hope that this might be innocent. With shaking hands, Erin pulled out her phone and began taking photos, her instincts from her advertising days kicking in even as her world collapsed. She managed to capture several clear images of Rami and the mystery woman together, their body language telling a story that no explanation could rationalize away. The young woman appeared to be in her early 20s, strikingly beautiful with polished elegance that suggested education and professional success. She was dressed in a stylish abaya, her makeup flawless despite the afternoon heat. When Rami placed his hand on the small of her back to guide her toward a secluded seating area, Erin knew with sick certainty that she was witnessing something that had been developing for far longer than this single afternoon. Later that evening, after enduring dinner with Rami who acted as if nothing had happened, Erin locked herself in their home office and began investigating the woman she had seen. Using the photos she had taken, she examined every detail: the woman's distinctive handbag, her jewelry, even the logo on her coffee cup. Through reverse image searches and social media investigation techniques from her marketing career, Erin gradually pieced together her identity. Her name was Salwa Kui, a 24-year-old financial analyst who worked directly under Rami at Emirates National Oil Company. Her LinkedIn profile revealed a brilliant young woman who had graduated with honors from the American University of Sharjah and had been rapidly promoted within ENOC's strategic planning department. As Erin scrolled through Salwa's carefully curated Instagram account, she felt a complex mixture of rage and grudging admiration. The young woman was everything Erin had once been: ambitious, career-focused, completely devoted to building her professional reputation. Her photos showed sophisticated Dubai experiences, from art gallery openings to weekend trips to Abu Dhabi's cultural sites. She was unmarried, came from a prominent Palestinian Emirati family, and represented exactly the kind of accomplished young woman that traditional families would consider an ideal match for a successful man like Rami. Over the following weeks, Erin became a detective in her own home, using skills she had never imagined needing. She accessed Rami's laptop while he was at work, finding email threads that confirmed her worst fears. Credit card statements showed expensive dinners at restaurants she had never been to, hotel bookings for weekend getaways during his supposed business trips, and jewelry purchases that had never made their way to her. The paper trail painted a picture of a relationship that had been developing for over 2 years, complete with romantic milestones and intimate celebrations. The most devastating evidence came when Erin began recording Rami's late-night phone conversations using a small device she had purchased online. She heard him speaking to Salwa in Arabic mixed with English, his voice filled with tenderness and passion that had disappeared from their own interactions. He made promises about their future together, discussed plans for introducing her properly to his family, and spoke about her with reverence that suggested this was far more than a casual affair. But the discovery that finally broke Erin's heart completely came when she found legal documents hidden in Rami's briefcase. Real estate contracts showed he had purchased a luxury apartment in Dubai Marina under both his and Salwa's names. Bank statements revealed joint accounts opened without Erin's knowledge. Most shocking were preliminary marriage preparation documents that made it clear Rami was planning to take Salwa as his second wife under UAE's Islamic law provisions for polygamy. The papers included religious consultation notes, family approval letters, and financial arrangements for supporting 2 households simultaneously. As Erin sat in her beautiful villa, surrounded by the life she thought she had built with a man she thought she knew, she realized that Rami hadn't just been having an affair. He had been systematically constructing an entirely separate life with another woman. The betrayal was complete, calculated, and had been developing right under her nose. Even more crushing was evidence that some members of Rami's family were aware of the arrangement and had given their approval, viewing polygamy as an acceptable solution that would allow Rami to maintain his established household while adding a more culturally suitable second wife. The woman who had once trusted completely now understood that she had been living a lie for years. But as the initial shock began to give way to something harder and more determined, Erin Blake realized that Rami had made one crucial mistake in his careful planning. He had underestimated the woman he had betrayed, and he was about to discover that an American woman with nothing left to lose could be far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The first week after Erin's devastating discovery was marked by a private emotional collapse that she carefully concealed from everyone around her. During the day, while Rami was at work and the girls were at school, she would lock herself in their master bathroom and sob until her chest ached, the weight of betrayal crushing down on her like the oppressive Dubai heat. The polygamy revelation had shattered not just her marriage, but her entire understanding of the cultural compromise she had made when she moved to the UAE. She found herself caught in an impossible psychological struggle between her Western values that viewed marriage as an exclusive partnership and the Islamic legal framework that made Rami's planned second marriage completely legitimate within UAE law. The rational part of her mind understood that millions of women throughout history had shared their husbands in polygamous arrangements, but her heart recoiled from the idea that she had been systematically replaced while being expected to graciously accept a diminished role in a man's life. Her greatest fear during these dark hours was that Sophia and Layla would somehow sense the devastation that was consuming their mother. She worked overtime to maintain the facade of normalcy when they were home, helping with homework, preparing their favorite meals, and maintaining the bedtime routines that gave their lives structure and security. But late at night, after ensuring that Rami was asleep, Erin would slip into the guest room and spend hours researching her options, reaching out through encrypted messaging apps to American friends who might understand her situation, and even contacting resources at the U.S. Embassy to understand her legal rights as an American citizen married to an Emirati national. The conversations with embassy staff were sobering. Dubai's family courts generally favored local customs, and her chances of maintaining custody of her daughters if she pursued a contentious divorce were far from guaranteed. During one particularly desperate midnight research session, Erin discovered the harsh reality of custody laws in the UAE, where children over 7 years old could potentially be placed with their father, especially if cultural and religious considerations came into play. The possibility of losing Sophia and Layla while Rami started his new life with Salwa was more terrifying than any personal humiliation she might endure. It was during this moment of complete despair that something fundamental shifted inside Erin Blake, transforming her from a devastated victim into a woman with a plan that would be as methodical as it was devastating. Rather than confronting Rami privately, which would give him the opportunity to control the narrative and potentially manipulate the situation in his favor, Erin made a strategic decision that would change everything. She realized that in a culture where family honor and public reputation carried enormous weight, the most effective weapon she could wield was truth delivered in the most humiliating context possible. The upcoming 5th anniversary of their wedding, which they had been discussing celebrating with a large family gathering, suddenly presented itself as the perfect opportunity for the kind of public exposure that would destroy not just Rami's marriage, but his standing within his own family and social circle. Erin began planning their anniversary celebration with the same meticulous attention to detail she had once applied to major advertising campaigns. She reached out to Rami's mother, suggesting that they host a formal dinner party at one of Dubai's premium hotels to celebrate a decade of marriage that had bridged 2 cultures and produced 2 beautiful daughters. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Rami's family was delighted that their American daughter-in-law was taking such initiative in honoring their family traditions and celebrating this important milestone. They praised her growth as a wife and her commitment to maintaining family values, completely unaware that she was orchestrating what would become the most devastating family gathering in the Al-Nuaimi family history. Erin selected the Armani Hotel Dubai for the celebration, booking their private dining room that could accommodate 40 guests and came equipped with state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment that she would need for her presentation. She told Rami that she wanted to create a special slideshow celebrating their journey together, their children's milestones, and the beautiful life they had built in Dubai. He was touched by what he perceived as her renewed commitment to their marriage and enthusiastically supported the idea, even offering to help with the technical setup. The irony was not lost on Erin that her husband was eagerly assisting with the preparation for his own public destruction. While managing the logistical details of the anniversary celebration, Erin was simultaneously creating what would become the most meticulously documented case of marital betrayal ever presented to an unsuspecting family gathering. She organized 2 years' worth of evidence into a chronological narrative that told the complete story of Rami's systematic deception, from the early stages of his relationship with Salwa through his recent plans for polygamous marriage. The video presentation she created was a masterpiece of devastating revelation, edited with professional precision and accompanied by a bilingual narration in both Arabic and English to ensure that every family member would understand exactly what they were witnessing. The most psychologically devastating element of Erin's presentation was her choice to use traditional Emirati music as the background soundtrack, creating a jarring contrast between the cultural celebrations the family expected and the evidence of betrayal that would unfold before their eyes. She spent hours perfecting the timing, ensuring that each piece of evidence would be clearly visible and comprehensible, while also consulting with legal experts to guarantee that her methods of gathering evidence had not violated any UAE laws that could complicate her divorce proceedings. As the anniversary date approached, Erin created multiple backup copies of her presentation and developed contingency plans for every possible technical failure. She had spent weeks transforming from a broken, betrayed wife into a strategic mastermind who was about to deliver justice in the most public and culturally devastating way imaginable. The woman who had once sacrificed everything for love was now prepared to sacrifice her husband's reputation, his family relationships, and his future happiness in service of a revenge that would be as perfect as it was complete. The 5th anniversary of their marriage would indeed be unforgettable, but not for the reasons anyone expected. The evening of their 5th wedding anniversary arrived with Dubai's typical March perfection: clear skies, gentle temperatures, and the kind of golden sunset that made the city's skyline shimmer like a mirage. The Armani Hotel's private dining room had been transformed into an elegant celebration space, with white roses and gold accents that reflected the luxury and sophistication that had defined Erin and Rami's decade together. As family members began arriving, Erin moved through the gathering with the grace of a seasoned hostess, greeting each relative with warm embraces and heartfelt thanks for sharing this special milestone. She wore a stunning emerald green dress that complemented her auburn hair, looking every inch the successful expatriate wife who had seamlessly integrated into Emirati culture while maintaining her own identity. Rami basked in the attention and praise from his extended family, completely oblivious to the devastating surprise that awaited him. During the cocktail hour, he delivered an impromptu speech about their journey together, speaking eloquently about how Erin had sacrificed her career in New York to build a life with him in Dubai, how she had embraced his culture while sharing her own, and how their marriage represented the beautiful possibility of love transcending cultural boundaries. His parents beamed with pride as he described Erin as the perfect wife and mother, while his siblings nodded approvingly at what appeared to be a genuine celebration of cross-cultural marital success. The assembled 40+ relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends, represented the full spectrum of the Al-Nuaimi clan, creating exactly the audience Erin had envisioned for what would unfold. As dinner concluded and the formal program began, Erin approached the microphone with the poised confidence of someone who had spent years presenting to clients and colleagues. She thanked the family for their love and support over the past decade, spoke movingly about the challenges and joys of building a bicultural marriage, and expressed her deep gratitude for being welcomed into such a loving and traditional family. The room was filled with warm smiles and appreciative murmurs as she announced that she had prepared a special presentation celebrating their 10-year journey together, complete with photos, videos, and memories that would showcase the beautiful life she and Rami had created. The lights dimmed as the projection screen illuminated, and the family settled back in their chairs with the expectant pleasure of relatives prepared to enjoy a nostalgic trip through a couple's shared history. The presentation began innocuously enough, with early photos of Erin and Rami during their Boston courtship, their engagement announcement, and the elaborate wedding celebration that had brought two families together. But as the chronological journey progressed, the tone began to shift in ways that initially seemed subtle but quickly became unmistakable. Instead of the expected family vacation photos and milestone celebrations, the screen began displaying images that made the room fall into confused silence. Time-stamped photographs showed Rami in intimate embraces with a young woman who was clearly not his wife, the metadata clearly visible to prove when and where each image had been captured. The progression was methodical and devastating: coffee dates, romantic dinners, weekend getaways, and increasingly intimate moments that documented a relationship that had been developing parallel to his marriage. As the visual evidence mounted, Erin's carefully prepared narration began playing through the sound system, her voice calm and factual as she explained exactly what the family was witnessing. The audio portion of the presentation was perhaps even more devastating than the visual evidence. Rami's own voice filled the elegant dining room as recorded phone conversations played. His tender declarations of love for Saul were clearly audible as he discussed their future together, his plans to marry her as his second wife, and his excitement about the life they would build together. The contrast between the romantic anniversary setting and the evidence of systematic betrayal created a cognitive dissonance that left the family struggling to process what they were experiencing. The room erupted into chaos as the full scope of Rami's deception became undeniable. His elderly grandmother began crying, his mother started screaming in Arabic, and his brothers launched into furious arguments about family honor and cultural shame. Rami himself made desperate attempts to stop the presentation, lunging toward the equipment while shouting explanations that no one was listening to anymore. But Erin had anticipated this reaction and had secured the technical setup in ways that made interference impossible, ensuring that every piece of evidence would be seen by every family member present. The generational divide in the family's reaction was stark and immediate. The older relatives were devastated by the public humiliation and the damage to the family's reputation, while younger cousins and siblings expressed outrage at Rami's betrayal of a woman who had sacrificed everything for their family. The cultural implications were enormous. This wasn't just marital infidelity, but a violation of the honor and respect that formed the foundation of family relationships in Emirati society. As the presentation concluded and the room gradually quieted into stunned silence, Erin stepped forward once more to deliver the final element of her carefully orchestrated revenge. From her elegant clutch, she withdrew a set of legal documents that she placed on the table in front of Rami with the same calm precision she had used throughout the evening. The divorce petition outlined her demands with crystal clarity: full custody of Sophia and Layla, immediate separation of all assets, substantial alimony payments, and complete termination of their marriage. Her final statement to the assembled family was delivered with quiet dignity that contrasted sharply with the emotional chaos surrounding her. She spoke about her deep respect for Emirati culture and her genuine love for the family that had welcomed her, but explained that respect and love could not coexist with systematic deception and betrayal. She had given 5 years of her life to building a marriage based on mutual honor, and she would not spend another day pretending that foundation still existed. Rami's complete emotional collapse in front of his entire extended family marked the end of not just his marriage, but his standing as a respected member of the Al-Nuaimi clan. The man who had begun the evening as a celebrated husband and father ended it as a figure of shame whose betrayal had been witnessed by everyone who mattered in his world. The morning after the anniversary dinner from hell, Dubai's expatriate community was buzzing with whispers and social media posts about the most spectacular public family destruction anyone could remember. Within hours of the dinner, guests had shared details of Erin's presentation with friends and colleagues, and the story spread through the tightly knit expat networks like wildfire. WhatsApp groups exploded with commentary, Instagram stories hinted at scandalous revelations, and coffee shops from Jumeirah to Dubai Marina became venues for hushed conversations about the American woman who had exposed her husband's betrayal in front of his entire family. The Al-Nuaimi family, once respected pillars of traditional Emirati society, found themselves at the center of a scandal that challenged everything they had built their reputation upon. The workplace consequences for Rami were swift and merciless. Emirates National Oil Company, like most government-linked enterprises in the UAE, maintained strict codes of conduct that extended beyond professional behavior into personal ethics. The revelation that Rami had been conducting an affair with a direct subordinate created liability issues that the company could not ignore, while the public nature of the scandal made him a liability they could not afford to protect. Within a week of the anniversary dinner, Rami was quietly demoted from his strategic planning role and transferred to a position with minimal responsibility and no direct reports. His colleagues, who had once respected his business acumen and cultural navigation skills, now avoided him in hallways and excluded him from the professional networks that had once advanced his career. For Salwa Kui, the aftermath was equally devastating but complicated by her age and the traditional expectations placed on young Emirati women. Her family, horrified by the public scandal and the damage to their reputation, immediately removed her from Dubai and sent her to live with relatives in Abu Dhabi while they attempted to contain the social fallout. The promising career she had built at ENOC was effectively over, and the scandal would follow her throughout the close-knit professional community of the UAE. At 24, Salwa found herself paying the price for a relationship that had promised her everything but had instead destroyed her future prospects in a society where reputation was everything. The legal proceedings that followed moved with surprising speed, aided by the overwhelming evidence Erin had compiled and the public nature of Rami's humiliation. Dubai's family courts, presented with irrefutable proof of adultery and deception, had little choice but to grant Erin's custody demands in full. The financial settlement was substantial, reflecting both the assets they had accumulated during their marriage and the court's recognition of the sacrifices Erin had made in abandoning her career to support Rami's ambitions. Within 3 months of the anniversary dinner, Erin Blake was legally free from her marriage and financially secure enough to rebuild her life on her own terms. The expatriate community's response to Erin's situation was overwhelmingly supportive, with women from across Dubai's international community rallying around her as a symbol of strength and independence. Her story resonated particularly strongly with other American and European women who had made similar sacrifices for cross-cultural marriages, and she found herself surrounded by a network of support that she had never fully appreciated during her years as a devoted wife. International media picked up the story as well, with publications from New York to London featuring articles about cultural clash, modern marriage, and the lengths to which betrayed spouses might go to reclaim their dignity. But while Erin was experiencing a form of liberation and vindication, Rami's world was collapsing in ways that even she had not fully anticipated. His family's rejection was absolute and culturally devastating. His parents refused to see him, his siblings changed their phone numbers, and even distant relatives made it clear that he was no longer welcome at family gatherings or cultural celebrations. The man who had once been the pride of the Al-Nuaimi clan had become its greatest source of shame, and the traditional support systems that defined Emirati family life were no longer available to him. The financial pressure of the divorce settlement, combined with his career destruction and social isolation, created a perfect storm of circumstances that overwhelmed Rami's ability to cope. Legal fees consumed his savings, alimony payments strained his reduced income, and the luxury lifestyle he had maintained with 2 women became impossible to sustain alone. Friends and colleagues who had once admired his success now distanced themselves from his scandal, leaving him increasingly isolated in a city where social connections determined both professional opportunities and personal happiness. By summer 2019, those who still maintained contact with Rami reported that he seemed to be spiraling into depression and anxiety, unable to rebuild his life or find a path forward from the complete destruction of everything he had once valued. The guilt of losing his daughters, the shame of his family's rejection, and the hopelessness of his professional and social situation consumed him with an intensity that worried even his few remaining acquaintances. On August 12, 2019, Rami Al-Nuaimi was found dead in the small apartment he had been renting in Dubai Marina, a stark contrast to the villa in Jumeirah where he had once lived with his perfect family. The medical examiner's report confirmed suicide, and beside his body was a handwritten note that contained only 7 words: "I lost everything. Because I lied." The simplicity of his final message captured the devastating completeness of his downfall and the recognition that his own choices had orchestrated every element of his destruction. The news of Rami's death sent shockwaves through both the Al-Nuaimi family and Dubai's expatriate community, forcing everyone to grapple with the unintended consequences of Erin's perfect revenge. For Erin herself, the news brought a complex mixture of emotions: vindication tempered by tragedy, justice shadowed by loss, and the sobering realization that truth could be both liberating and destructive in ways she had never fully anticipated. Today, Erin Blake lives in Dubai with Sophia and Layla, having rebuilt her marketing career and created a new life defined by independence and authenticity rather than cultural compromise. Her story has become legendary within expatriate circles, serving as both inspiration and cautionary tale about the power of truth and the devastating consequences of betrayal. In a city obsessed with perfection and carefully curated facades, Erin Blake chose truth over illusion, justice over peace, and in doing so, changed not only her own life but the lives of everyone touched by her perfect, terrible revenge. She had sought to destroy a lie and succeeded beyond her wildest imagination, but the price of that truth would resonate through their fractured family.